International University of Sarajevo. Dr. Ildirim has been the rector of the university since 2018. He holds a PhD from Washington State University, where he studied at the university department's crop and social sciences, and has an extensive teaching and academic career at universities in the United States, Turkey, and Bosnia and Herzegovina. It's a great honor for us to have you as rector to open up this tribunal, and it's to have you pay us the honor of opening the tribunal's proceedings. May I ask you to come up?
Thank you for giving me this chance. Esteemed guests, friends in justice and humanity, welcome to Sarajevo. We gather here not only in a place, but in a legacy, a city whose name carries both the weight of suffering and the power of resistance. This year marks 30 years since the genocide in Srebrenica, where more than 80,000 Bosniak men and boys were murdered while the world stood by. We remember them today not as a historical footnote, but as a living call to conscience. That memory sharpens our purpose here today, because once again we are witnessing mass murder in real time, this time in Gaza. And once again, the world is hesitating, giving evasive answers, and looking away. Since October 2023, over 58,000 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli army in Gaza. More than 70% of them were women and children. Entire families have been erased from the civil registry, hospitals bombed, refugee camps turned to ash, journalists targeted, aid workers killed, international law has been torn to pieces. And yet, too many in positions of power dare to call this self-defense. Let us be clear, what is happening in Gaza is not a conflict. It is not a tragedy. It is a systematic campaign of extermination. It is a genocide unfolding in front of our eyes. And history will ask what we did while Gaza burned. We are here at the Gaza Tribunal Public Assembly because we refuse to be silent witnesses. We are here to speak the truth when others hide behind diplomacy. We are here because Palestinian lives matter, not as a mere symbols or numbers, but as real people with names, homes, loved ones, and dreams that are being taken away without accountability. To those who survived Srebrenica, your pain has become a compass. You know what it means to dig mass graves. You know what it means to be abandoned. And you know what it means to rise and say, never again. Not just for us, but for anyone, anywhere. To our Palestinian brothers and sisters, your suffering is not invisible. Your struggle is not in vain. And your fight for justice is not isolated. Sarajevo stands with you. Srebrenica mourns with you. This tribunal is not the end, it's the beginning. Let this assembly speak what governments dare not say. Let it be a courtroom for the truth. Let it document, expose, and remember. On this occasion, I would like to thank all stakeholders who organized the Gaza Tribunal in Sarajevo, the most suitable place. I would also like to express my pleasure in hosting you at our university as director of the International University of Sarajevo. I wish you a successful assembly, and I extend my respects to all of you. Thank you very much.
We're now going to hear a presentation live from California from the president of the Gaza Tribunal, Richard Falk. I have a long introduction for him, none of which I think I need to read. I think everybody in this room is probably very familiar with his accomplishments and his achievements. So I'll let it at that, and I I hope we're ready to be able to receive him.
Dr. Yildirim and persons of conscience throughout the world, I welcome you to the opening day of this tribunal. It is with great regret that I am not physically present in Sarajevo. On the day of our departure from California, my wife, Hilala Elver, also a leading participant in the work of the tribunal, had an accident requiring surgery and making long plane flights dangerous. The Gaza Tribunal is devoted to bearing witness to Israel's crimes against the people of Gaza. Beyond this, the purpose of the tribunal is to add whatever weight it can to the torment and outrage of peoples throughout the world, to bring the Gaza ordeal of death and destruction to a rapid end by urging action to be taken in the name of our common humanity. We give grateful thanks to the International University of Sarajevo for allowing us to meet on its campus. As Rector Yildirim reminded us, we are, of course, also mindful of Sarajevo's and Bosnia's recent past and its relevance to the tragic fate that has befallen the people of Palestine, who have been made either refugees or persecuted strangers in their own homeland. It is in this period of more than 19 months, the eyes and ears of the world have been exposed to daily atrocities, victimizing the besieged, crowded, impoverished, and tiny Gaza Strip. Earlier genocides, including the Holocaust, were mostly known in retrospect by way of survivor stories and reconstructed images of the horrors experienced by the victims. This was in macabre contrast to the devastation visited upon Gaza. Day after day, the unspeakable suffering of its remarkably resilient and resisting people offer us a transparent TV spectacle of evil, made worse by being brought to human awareness in real time. Shamelessly, Israel made little attempt to hide its genocidal intentions or disguise its genocidal tactics. It openly declared its purpose to be to kill and maim Palestinians, whether by bombs or by chilling refusals to allow Gazans to obtain food and medical supplies. Its leaders invoked biblical stories of genocide to justify the extermination of the Palestinian population of Gaza. Prominent Israeli citizens and government officials compared the mentality of killing Palestinians to that accompanying the killing of cockroaches. Some high-profile Israelis even advocated dropping a nuclear bomb on densely populated Gaza. The Israeli hostages held by Hamas did not restrain Israel's violence or move the government toward accepting a permanent ceasefire, even after the fury of its campaign went on month after month without achieving its stated military objective of destroying Hamas. The pleas and warnings of the world's leading moral authority figures went unheeded. Those voices included dedicated calls from Pope Francis and Pope Leo XIV and from the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres and several Nobel Peace Prize winners. These varied, revered voices were defiantly scorned by Israel's government and citizenry, and the massacres continue to go on. The UN, despite making a variety of responses, has not been able to stop the killing, let alone protect the people, even the children. It has been blocked from taking action by the complicity of the North American and European liberal democracies. It has become obvious to all that the UN lacks the political will, authority, and capabilities to override the genocidal support given Israel by the US. As the Israeli rogue behavior persisted, the peoples of the world, including in the countries aligned with Israel, mounted increasingly militant protests. But the governments that could have made a difference watched the carnage without making moves to stop it. And this includes the governments of Israel's own Arab neighbors. It is against this background that the Gaza Tribunal was established some months ago, launched in London in November of 2024, and since then working hard to prepare as well as we could for this public session in Sarajevo. The undertaking can be grasped from the program of the next 4 days. The Gaza Tribunal draws inspiration from prior people's tribunals, most especially from the Russell Tribunal addressing the unlawfulness of the U.S. intervention in the Vietnam War, and from the Iraq War Tribunal that was prompted by the regime-changing aggression that brought chaos and misery to the Iraqi people. This legacy of earlier people's tribunals has a common feature that defines the mission of the Gaza Tribunal. It is the failure of organized international society to enforce international law and hold the perpetrators accountable. In short, these tribunals arise only when governments and their institutions fail or refuse to address severe injustices, especially bearing on war and peace. In essence, people act when the established order exhibits its moral and legal bankruptcy from the perspective of justice, and in this case, from the perspective of the avoidance and opposition to genocide. Gaza is a special case in some respects. Some countries of the global South have had recourse to the International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Court and found support for their allegations of genocide and crimes against humanity. But this turned out to be of little use in stopping the genocide, as the decisions were unenforceable and perpetrators retained their impunity. Yet these outcomes are helpful in this context because their outcomes confirm that Israel has been driven from the high moral and legal ground despite its great influence on public discourse throughout the world. In addition, the side that wins the legality battles also wins the legitimacy war, and this is historically important. From the Vietnam War forward, the side with military superiority has rarely controlled political outcomes in anti-colonial warfare, however much death and devastation it inflicts while losing the conflict. In the coming days, we will try to apply this experience to the genocide in Gaza. Can we do otherwise? Only 2 days ago, Israel knowingly targeted the home of 2 married doctors with an awareness that the house was full of children. While the mother, Ala Najjar, a pediatrician, was working at the nearby Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis, 9 of her 10 children were killed by a fire started by the bombing. The bodies brought to her while she was at work in the hospital and while her husband was wounded and in critical condition due to head injuries, and the one surviving child has also been badly injured. Can any of us rest while such barbarous behavior goes on and on without effective action to stop it? I am counting on what I call the gravitas of awakened people to do what governments refuse to do, namely to bring this ordeal to an end and defeat the plans for further extermination and forced departure from Gaza of the Palestinians who survive. We are gathered here in Sarajevo to do our part in meeting what has been rightly called the moral challenge of our time. I thank you for your patience, and I now turn the podium over to my dear friend, Professor Penny Green, who will make some remarks and has kindly agreed to serve as temporary chairperson of the Gaza Tribunal in my absence. Thank you very much.
I think it's very difficult to follow from what Richard said, and I was also going to speak to the horrendous case that he referred to of Dr. Ala and the unimaginable loss and the brutal loss of 9 of her 10 children. Richard has asked me to just make a few brief comments, and I realise that we are running quite late, so I will make my comments very brief. I wanted to say thank you to all those involved in making today possible. It's been a tremendous amount of work, and we are very grateful for the logistical support that we've had, because this has been a major enterprise. But we're here and we're very grateful and we welcome you all. Thank you very much. The location of this conference, as Professor Ahmet Yildirim said, here in Sarajevo in Bosnia-Herzegovina is not coincidental. In 1995, only 2.5 hours drive from here in the small town of Srebrenica, 8,000 people over the course of only 2 days were annihilated at the hands of Serbian genocidaires, while under the protection of Dutch UN forces in a supposedly safe UN zone. The UN has not crowned itself in glory in relation to genocide. Yesterday, I was in Srebrenica, speaking with the mothers of Srebrenica, who were once wives, mothers, daughters, and sisters, and who spend their lives now fighting to ensure that, or to try and ensure that similar genocides do not take place in any other part of the world, let alone here. We spoke of Gaza with these wonderful women, and those days in 1995, which forever determined the future of their lives. We talked about the parallels that they experienced with the Palestinian people, with their own experience of genocide. And one of the mothers relayed a meeting with a young Bosnian man she had some years ago in Germany. He had befriended Zionists there. She asked him what he saw as the future of Palestine, and he replied, "They're not going to exist." Now, every day, when news of Gaza reaches her, she hears that sentence, "They won't exist." This woman lost her husband and her son in the genocide. She has no more space, as she says, for pain, to witness pain. Yet she fights on against the forces which produce genocide every day. And she expresses the deepest kind of empathy with Palestinians who are again fighting for their very existence, for their very futures. And so that experience was extremely salutary. So it's very important that we are here to acknowledge the people of Srebrenica as we fight to try to stop the carnage that Israel is inflicting. Israel and the United States are inflicting upon the people of Gaza. We are at something of a crossroads. In 1924, the Italian Marxist Antonio Gramsci wrote in response to the rise of Mussolini and the rise of Italian fascism, he wrote, the old world is dying and the new world is struggling to be born. Now is the time of monsters. Over the next 3 days, we will hear testimony which speaks to the death of the old order, which we are presently witnessing. We will hear the voices of Palestinians and their allies around the world as we struggle to create a new world, a world free of the kind of injustices that we are witnessing in Gaza and the devastation there. And we will hear much of the monsters who our own governments and the Israeli government, the Israeli state machine, the Americans who have supported them and enabled and made possible this horrendous genocide. We will hear much about the monsters. And we must always remember that while the media will try to describe and present this as a humanitarian crisis, this is a crisis created by monsters. And we must do our best to ensure that we fight the monsters at every level that we can. Thank you.